really appreciate this wonderful turnout. Understand that Councillor McGuire does not have a camera functioning this morning, so he will be he's on the screen, just not on camera, and he will communicate via chat. So we thank him for that. Like I say, great to see everyone this morning on this 25th of May, and we will start off just with amendments to the agenda. So does anyone, I'm just going to adjust my screen. There we go. And does anyone have any amendments? Nothing. Seeing none. Councillor McGuire, I'm just confirming that you don't have any amendments, but all right. Disclosures of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have anything there to disclose? Nope. No, I'm seeing none. Okay, so we will move on to the adoption of the minutes. And we do have a set of minutes to adopt this morning, the minutes from the previous meeting on April 20th. So if I could have a motion to move those minutes forward, please. Dan, thank you. And I'll have someone second that motion, please. And Jen, thank you. So we'll move on then. There's no delegations this morning. There's no correspondence items this morning. So we'll jump right into our priority issues, and the first one being Accessibility Week. And I'll speak about that. Now, I know Accessibility Week is fast approaching, and just with schedules and COVID and other things this year, it's a little tight. However, we are still there to acknowledge that, and you know, we want to know if there's any other ideas. Nadine, I think you had mentioned that Accessibility Week was proclaimed last evening at council, and just wondering if anyone had any further ideas for that week to move forward. Does anyone have anything there? Councillor Allen.
I was just rereading minutes, and I think it was Jennifer that had volunteered to do some pictures of accessible buildings in our downtown area. I was thinking that might be a nice Facebook or, promotion just for the week to show other people that, we do have a lot of accessibility in the downtown, with some people already working on that, but just an idea. I was thinking of things that we could do just to promote, what people are doing already. And
that's a great idea. That's a great idea. It would be nice to get some awareness out through social media. It's quite an outlet, quite widely used, very popular. So I think that would be a good way to get the message across. All right, Nadine.
Just going to say on that, if perhaps we could have those pictures in by the end of this week, I could send them to the communications coordinator to work on scheduling them in our communications, and she could, if there's some wording that the committee wants behind it, if that could be submitted by the end of the week, we could have that sent to her to massage and post for us.
Sure.
Okay, I'll get those to you by the end of this week.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you. So I think someone else had their, Dan, did you have your hand up as well?
I did. Posters. So I have a lot of people that walk through the store every week. What's the accessibility for getting posters?
Nadine, if that's okay, I can do some research actually this morning and send you a poster, and then if you don't mind just sending it out a link to the committee just to make sure they're okay with it, and then can get them printed. I know we still have access probably to last year's too, so if we want to use that one too, we could just change dates on there.
And I don't even need to have the post, even if it's just sent to me as a PDF, I can print it at the store and then I can put it up that way too.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Wonderful. So if the
Good
committee is okay with that, then I will get to work on finding a poster this morning, and I'll send it to Nadine and we'll go from there. If everyone's all right with that. Sure. Okay, I'll get that done. All right, so I think, is there any other suggestions, ideas?
Are you, Lucia, are we going to pick a date for the red shirts? Are we going to do red shirts again?
I would think that would be a wonderful idea if the committee would like that. Does anyone have a particular day that they think would be most widely used? I can double check the website too in terms of what day it would be during the week this year.
That'd be great. And that could be on the poster too, so that people would, if they saw posters, they would know, give them a little bit of lead time in the Accessibility Week poster that, let's say it's June, if it starts on May 29th, June 2nd, June 3rd, that's Red Shirt Day to promote awareness for accessibility.
Absolutely. Nadine.
Just Googled it, and Easter Seals has announced Red Shirt Day as June 1st, 2022.
Okay. Okay. So I will try and find a poster that indicates that as well. I think that's a great idea, and like you say, the lead time I think is wonderful to have, just so that everybody is aware.
Do you want to meet at Independent on June 1st in our red shirts and take a picture?
If everybody is open to that, we could. Nadine, is that something that we could do on that end?
Certainly, I won't be available next week, unfortunately. Yeah, if the committee wanted to meet, we certainly can. And if that doesn't work for everyone, we do have a picture from last year's meeting, red shirts, that we could promote on social media as well. So whatever works. Yeah.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I apologize. I just won't be available next week for that. But certainly the committee could, wear their red shirts or get a picture, or just can't have like if you're planning a meeting next week, I'd have to see if we could have a staff resource cover for me, and as well as live stream it. That's the other thing that we have to confirm, if there's availability to do that. But if you're just out promoting in your red shirts, certainly you can do that.
Or just use the picture from last year if that's easier. I mean,
Sure.
what do you think? We were all there.
I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't?
I don't think so. I think I was away that day. If it's the one that I saw on Facebook, that's okay. That's okay. I'm happy to meet again, make it more current, but if we've got one, that's fine. That's okay too.
I'll show you the one that we have in the document. I'm just looking here to see. If everyone can see, that's the work plan. There's the picture right there. Yeah, you're right, Lorraine. You were, Councillor Allen wasn't there. There was Lucy, Corey, Kelly, Katie, Jennifer, myself. The guests that spoke as a delegation, Dan. The other guests that spoke at the delegation, and Councillor McGuire. The other
There's
option-
also that great picture of Lucy we could
Yeah.
use. That's
Yeah, the other option you have in that, Madam Chair, is if I know Jennifer had, and I don't mean to speak without asking her, but I know she had recommended last time that she could take pictures of each member. So maybe if there's an opportunity to take a picture of each member in a red shirt, then we could combine that all into one picture as well. So
We could meet this weekend ahead of Accessibility Week. We could meet right at Independent if everybody's available, maybe on Saturday or Sunday. That way,
Yeah.
usually people's schedules are pretty open on the weekends.
okay.
Let me
I
know.
think
What time, Dan, would be best there?
As well, 11:30, it really starts to get crazy in there with traffic and people, but anytime before 10:30 probably is the best.
Okay.
All right. Just a couple of housekeeping items here, everyone. Seeing in the chat, Councillor McGuire is just asking if we could meet somewhere outside instead of having a meeting formally, and I think that's where the discussion is at right now.
Mhm.
And also welcome to, I see Corey now has joined us, so welcome, Corey.
Madam Chair, if I could just interrupt, certainly it's not going to be, it wouldn't be a meeting of the committee. It would just be a picture taking event. There would be no discussion of business move forward. I just want to make sure that was clear for the public. So be more of a promotion of Accessibility Week.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that the public's aware it certainly wouldn't be a meeting because we have to follow the procedural bylaw for that.
Sure. Sure.
And that's a great place to take the picture because the store is very accessible.
Very.
And I mean, we should be doing that, promoting more of the thank you to the people who have accessible businesses.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, and certainly Independent is a very accessible spot to for everyone. So I do. It would be great to promote that. So if we could maybe pick a day, then Saturday or Sunday, whichever one works for everybody.
I'm
usually
Free
actually,
both days.
sorry, I'm camping this weekend, but we're just at Charlotte Lake, so I can just come in on the morning, or we could do Sunday afternoon as well.
Okay.
Which is
Don't come
better.
in from late.
Only an hour.
Yeah, but you're camping. That's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Oh boy.
Madam Chair,
Nadine.
I'm wondering if we could recommend maybe something this week, that way it doesn't conflict with Jen's plans. The other thing is that way I can get it to the communications coordinator by the end of the week. I'm just thinking of her scheduling because they do schedule different communications through the week. So I think I'm wondering, like, even if we could meet at the town hall one morning, grab a picture or wherever you wish to do it. I guess the town hall is not maybe the best location right now with construction, but and then that way I can have it to her by like Friday-ish if possible.
Mhm.
Or if that doesn't work for everyone, you know, if we can't get every member there because we don't want anyone left out again, and just the other suggestion is take an individual picture of each person in their red shirt and then combine it into one post. It's up to you. That's just some suggestions.
Mhm. Does anyone have any idea? Councillor Allen?
Nadine, would they come to Independent if we chose there and take the picture? Is that what you're saying?
I think originally we talked about Jen taking a picture.
Right, but you were saying something about the staff member, they're writing it up or?
So we have a communications coordinator, so I was just thinking next week it'd be nice, like you had mentioned about the messaging, so we could, that we just have to plan for the messaging. So if we had some ideas of, like if that picture was done, then I could make sure it was in on time so they could, you know, share the proclamation, share some of the messaging and some of the pictures that Jen might take of accessible locations in Smith Falls to help promote that whole week. So I could see if they are available, you know, to come take a picture, and if not, I can take a picture of all of you with my phone and send it in. We could do whatever works.
So I'm free anytime during the week. I can arrange anything, so.
The weather is supposed to be good for the next few days. So like, could we do tomorrow evening? Is everybody available tomorrow evening?
Sure.
Mhm.
And
I'm
actually
okay
evening is
with-
a better time for light for photographs as well. It's not so harsh.
Evening is better than morning for me.
Anything's better than morning, okay?
Yeah, anything better than morning.
I'm actually not available tomorrow morning, but the evening is perfect.
Sure.
I can request somebody to take that picture. I just know that staff aren't available in the evening, so if someone doesn't mind coordinating that picture.
Alex can take it. My
Yeah.
husband can come along and he can take it.
Perfect. And then just if you send it to me, I'll make sure it gets in the messaging. That'd be great for
Okay.
everybody to see.
Okay, so
So where are we meeting then and what time?
that was gonna be my next question, Jen. What time would work for everyone?
Doesn't matter.
I think we should do it at Independence still to promote like the store being fully accessible.
Yeah, I agree.
Is 6 o'clock okay, Dan, do you think?
Yeah, the business dies down then. Yeah.
Okay. So 6 o'clock then an independent, guys?
What day,
Okay,
That works?
what day did you say, Jen?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay, 6 tomorrow. Okay.
Tomorrow. Right, is that work for everyone then? Nadine, I don't know if you want to reach out to anyone who's not present here, Kevin, or I know Kevin's not with us. If you wouldn't mind just sending him an email of our plan and see if he can make it.
No problem.
Sure. All right, so I think we can go with 6 o'clock tomorrow then. That works for everybody.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right, so I think that discussion is good. Is there any other accessibility week input from anyone else that would want to bring forward? No. Okay, so we will move on to our next agenda item then. Next priority issue. In being a little bit of CIP update sort of thing, I had the pleasure of doing an interview with Dillon Consulting recently, and I just wanted to make sure that the committee is informed of how that was conducted and what was said during that. So I'll just kind of go through some of the questions that they asked me and what I responded to, and certainly I did try and keep in mind previous discussions the committee has had. So one of the things that they asked me was just basic areas for improvement, retrofits, that sort of thing. And I talked about the just the lack of sidewalks that we have, just to try and improve that, as well as talked about some of the storefronts. I know that has come up in our discussions, and we've had some great feedback on that. So was able to talk about that. Another thing that I talked about was parks, and just how we're hoping to move forward on some accessible parks, and removing some of those barriers, having more accessible play equipment, and lowering curbs in some of the parks in town, and that sort of thing. The second question they asked me would be about the target audience, in terms of incentive programs. And certainly I had thought that seniors residences would be a good place for some incentive programming. Some essential services that everybody would have to access. And I also thought a good target audience would be residents who are on fixed income. I know poverty is quite an issue these days, and I think that people with those kinds of challenges should be acknowledged as well. Just another question that was asked just about some accessibility improvements that could be made, and I talked about the crosswalk markings, and another thing I mentioned was curbs and pedestrian signals, and really just improving accessibility for people with all kinds of different disabilities. And I know that's come up in our discussions as well, so I knew that the committee would support anything talked about in that sense. So that was sort of my discussion there. They asked me about some improvements in terms of buildings and that sort of thing, and how we could make those more accessible, and some aids to do that. And I talked about ramps, railings, having an automatic door, and I also brought up the point when I was talking about automatic doors, just to make sure that those doors are accommodating so that a person can get out of the way while the door opens, and then safely get around the open door to enter the building. I know that we've had some pretty robust discussions around accessible buildings, and certainly I tried to incorporate some of those discussions in that question. I was asked about how much funding would be needed to make those changes. And I simply talked about the fact that there's not one specific number, so to speak. It's very different depends on, what needs to be done in that place to make it accessible. And I talked about, how there's no Band-Aid solution. There's no one thing that we need to address. It's all based off of, and I know some places in particular would have significant issues around risk and liability and just basic accommodations, depending on who their target audience would be and who would be using their facility the most. I talked about the example of the community center, and they were actually quite a good example of some changes that were made. I don't know if you had noticed, but during COVID, the height of COVID, they had a parking around the side of the building that was used because of the vaccine checking those certificates. So they had the entrance outside, and they didn't have all of everything in place right away, and that's totally understandable. It was a very quick pivot for them to do, but as time went on, I did notice that they have some accessible parking at that side now, which is wonderful to see, and I believe maybe some lighting and stuff as well. So it's that was something I had mentioned too, and obviously it's an ongoing process, and they will change things as needed. And again, just talking about how there is not one kind of disability, there's more than one kind, and a lot of them actually are invisible disabilities, things that we may not know about that a person deals with. Another question they asked me was how much funding specifically would be needed to make some changes, and what places don't need the funding or shouldn't access the funding. And I responded that really, there isn't any place that doesn't deserve funding to make their building accessible. That's a wonderful thing to want to do, and I believe that they should have the means to be able to do that. There are some places I know that already have access to some funding. Hospitals, schools, license offices, they have some federal funding sort of as a starting point for them, but obviously, again, there's no place that doesn't deserve some help if they need it. Another question talked about again, prioritizing different needs ahead of other needs. And again, I talked about invisible disabilities and just making sure that no need goes unnoticed, and just making sure that everybody is included when there's changes to be made. So that was kind of that discussion. Obviously essential services are a big part of that, and making sure that everybody can access those. I was asked, I'm just looking here, the final question was, I was just asked about any success stories that we've seen, and I know that there are some places that have offered to have sort of a virtual shopping option via technology during this time. The addition of parking at the community center and safety issues around that are really came up as well. And then just some general comments that I made, just again to acknowledge not only physical barriers, but social barriers and use of lighting and sound and scent and those sort of things that may be a challenge for other people as well. So just to keep all those issues in mind. So those were just some. Just bear with me, folks. I lost the. There we go. So those were just some of my thoughts, and certainly thank all the committee for their input over the time, and hope that was successful interview, and hope that all your issues were talked about as well. All right, is there any questions or comments around there? I think I'm seeing none. Okay. Just gonna check the chat here. There we go. Nope. Okay, so I think we can move on to our last agenda item for this morning then. And that would be the work plan review. I know that's been an ongoing process for us, and certainly would like to get that completed if possible. So just, I know there was a document that Nadine had circulated with some of our suggestions around the work plan, and I would invite Nadine to speak to some of those issues and lead that discussion for us. So Nadine? I believe you're muted, Nadine.
Apologies.
No problem.
I'm just going to share the screen so everyone can see the policy. So hopefully you can see that okay. And if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, and with members of the committee, I'm just going to go through each section, and maybe we'll just confirm that the wording that's there is what the committee would like. As noted, this document was prepared by Councillor Allen and committee member Katie Hoffman, and we used another template. So there may be some things that may need to be removed if it's not applicable to our municipality. So I think the beginning part is council's commitment, and that's certainly the recommendation from the committee about what council's commitment would be. And we've included a picture of our downtown, our accessible downtown. So does anyone have any concerns with that portion of the document?
I think everything was fine on my end. Is there anyone else?
Okay. And then the municipal profile, this was excellently, excellent, that's not a word, I guess it was really well wrote by Katie and Councillor Allen. They captured the history of the town and just kind of provided a bit of a synopsis there. Is there any concerns there?
Would I just wonder whether we would say we are a railroad town. Would we say we have been a railroad town, or are we a railroad town?
The past tense makes more sense at this point.
I think so too.
Okay, what paragraph was that in?
A second to last, the town of Smiths Falls.
Smiths Falls, okay. We are a railroad town, and you wanted it changed to we were, or we?
We have been.
We have been, yeah. And maybe say, and still have a strong industrial, no, and where does it say? With it, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's good, the way it is there.
Also, our population has actually been updated. The census information came out and it's 9,517 now.
Perfect. And that was that 2021 or 2022?
2021.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll update that as well. Again, Katie, that was really well wrote. I know that you and Lorraine spent some time on that, so good job on that. So then I think when this document was first presented by Katie and Councillor Allen, there was a request to have a map. So this is one of the only ones that we could find that actually showed that Smiths Falls was between Ottawa and kind of.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I hope that's okay.
Mhm.
And then this section is actually taken from the terms of reference. So I know they had this portion here at the beginning, and then we included the role of the Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And this will fix here that it's administered through the Corporate Services Department. And then again, here's some of the items that are in the terms of reference of what some of the deliverables from this committee, of what they're to do and what their responsibilities are.
Mm-hmm.
And then this stuff we can include, we just included the link of where the information will be about the agendas. And I know moving forward, I can tell everyone that the website is under review, and economic development will be taking the lead on establishing a new website. So the hope is that every committee will have their own page with pictures.
Okay.
Or details of what they're responsible for. So again, another picture that captures some accessibility in Smiths Falls, which is the beautiful benches in the downtown where shoppers or pedestrians can take a break and have a seat. And then there's a section on accessibility planning and the town's commitment to accessibility planning, as well as the objectives of the plan. Does anyone have any concerns with the wording there?
Sounds fine.
Okay. And then, as noted in the template, there were some definitions. So there's, definitions for barriers and the methodology for identifying a barrier. So was there any changes there that you wanted? Okay. And then we speak to the legislative background of where this committee was formed under, and as I think it's something that this municipality should kind of brag about, is that under the Accessibility Act we did not require a committee because of our population, and so I think it was really a great initiative that Lucy originally brought the terms of reference forward to council and shared it with our council members. So I don't know if there's something like that you'd like to include, but it just shows that this council, this committee, the residents are, even though it's not required to have an accessibility committee under the act, that they wanted to be a leading edge and create that committee and improve the accessibility of our municipality. So you could consider writing something like that in here if you wish.
Mhm.
I'll just leave that with you. If you decide that you want to, we have let's craft up some wording, as this is a document of the committee, we could include that.
Mhm.
And then I think we included at the back some achievements of this committee. So of course this will have to update because in 2021 we held 9 meetings. And we've offered advice to date on various projects, including the Town Hall Phase 3, the Active Transportation Plan, the zoning bylaw review, Beckwith Street Revitalization Phase 2, Beckwith Street Phase 2, designated accessibility parking on Beckwith Street Phase 2, decorative crosswalk treatments, the town square, the bandstand, and the parking bylaw. And another thing that you recently reviewed was the election accessibility plan. So I think we'll update that to include those dates and items. But if there's anything there that you wanted to add, certainly let me know. And we can continue adding it right up till it's presented to council. So if there's other things that happen between now and the time, we'll just make sure that it's finalized and included. We have some pictures of our committee meeting and Chair Bingley when she had the accessible Halloween posters, and then the accessible crosswalk button to press when you cross the street. And then priorities and commitment for the rest of the term. So I think, you might want to look at that. We had talked at our last meeting about recommendations to council. So I think some of the wording here might be for another municipality. So I'm just wondering if you might want to change some of that. The last section is about reviewing and monitoring, and that's pretty standard. But I think you may want to look at if there's recommendations for council at this point in time, or if you're just going to update them on what your successes were to date. We're just seeking input on that.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Why don't you make the changes that you need and then present it and we can and see. Nadine, you've got some good ideas there.
We could do that if the committee wishes. I could do the updates and send it out again. And that, as I said, it's one of those documents that until it's presented to council, we may continue updating it.
Right.
But we can establish that and the committee can advise when they want it brought forward to council. I just didn't know if there was, I know that there was discussion around, an accessible beach. There's been some discussion around the parks and making them accessible. So I didn't know if there's recommendations that you wanted to put in there for council.
Oh, I see.
Through the chair, if we're gonna do the recommendations, I think we should put in that we recommend the beach area and make sure parks are kept accessible through the summer. Like, I know it's hard to keep the grass like extremely short, but grass isn't really the most accessible thing in a park. So if they keep it at least cut, it's easier to push wheelchairs on.
Fair point. We could perhaps put something in there about some of the parking that we have, and certainly acknowledge again. I know it's come up quite a few times, but acknowledge those curbs and see what we can do around them too.
Nadine, at the Victoria Park parking lot, is there accessible parking there?
I'm not sure, I can check. I know.
If there isn't, we should recommend that the town put in at least one, but should be two.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That would be a good recommendation.
So Madam Chair, just to confirm, at this
Sure.
point, I have, so recommendations, Victoria Park, accessible parking, or we could maybe, capture that as at the town review areas to ensure that accessible parking is provided, i.e. Victoria Park.
Mhm.
And then the parks being accessible, such as keeping the grass cut free, so that it's easier for wheelchairs to maneuver through that. Parking, you had mentioned the curbs, monitoring where curbs are and how they can be changed to be more accessible or shave. Sometimes they shave that down. And then the other issue was so we had mentioned the beach, and I just wondered, is there an actual item there? Are you thinking about an accessible ramp or just making the beach accessible through the sand in the water? That could just be clarified so I can include that appropriately.
I think that could be sort of a general accessible thing. Jen, I believe you had your hand up as well.
We had talked about the beach having a ramp of some kind, also getting rid of the curbs from the parking lot, or at least having a ramp to get up onto the grass area, and then a ramp into the water is something we had talked about. And I also wanted to add that a recommendation from us could be to review a lot of the sidewalks in town. A lot of the older sidewalks are very, very narrow. Like two people can't walk side by side, let alone somebody with an aid. And a lot of the curbs at the intersections, they're not ramps, they're literally curbs. So even if it's only a few inches, it's still a step up.
Mm-hmm. Fair point. I think that could be a good recommendation for sure. Corey, I believe you had your hand up as well.
And just covered it, we're good. A
Oh,
ramp going into the beach is what we did discuss for sure.
okay, for sure. Yeah, so I think, maybe just acknowledging the entrance to the beach, let alone what could be looked at in the beach, but just to make sure that it's accessible to get into to begin with.
I don't think there's accessible parking at the beach either. I think it's all regular parking.
I think so. So if the committee supports, we could maybe put a recommendation to have some accessible parking at the beach as well.
Yes.
Corey.
They also do movies under the stars at the water tower, and there isn't accessible parking there for that either, obviously. But maybe even like to reach out, I think it's the Heritage House Museum putting them on this year. Maybe reach out and just ask them to give like a certain spot for accessible people to sit too.
Yeah, that certainly is a good recommendation, and I know in the summer too we have a lot of visitors who may not be familiar with Smith Falls, so it would be very important that they are are aware of how things are set up for us as well. I think that's a good point. And Nadine,
Would it be okay if I just worded that as accessibility at festivals and events in the town of Smith Falls? That way it's captured for.
I think
That
that's,
was-
yeah. All right, Corey.
Just to answer Chris in the chat, he's asking if we would be interested, anyone would be interested in visiting parks to help come up with suggestions. I personally would be very interested in that. Just can't do it this week, unfortunately. But
That
I'm
would be-
definitely interested in doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe
That
even as
could
part
be-
of one of our meetings, we can like go
Yeah.
down there and do
Yeah.
a walk around.
Yeah, that could be something we could do as well. Maybe perhaps in sort of an extra event as we're doing with the picture tomorrow night, just as a group sort of, or whoever would like to do that. We could set times and get that going. Nadine,
Procedurally, I just caution that it's kind of a business of this committee, so we'd have to follow the procedural bylaw for that. So I would suggest you either do it on your own or, and then come back with the ideas as a group. Or, you know, we could maybe, like we are meeting virtually, so that's probably the only thing I could offer at this point in time, is if you could just go on your own, make your notes, take pictures, whatever you like, and then come back as a group and maybe we discuss that at our next meeting when I bring the updated document.
sure.
Sorry, I always have to follow the procedural bylaw.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I could leave that with the committee then, just to sort of coordinate on their own time, and perhaps if there's agenda items that you would like brought forward related to that, you could bring those forward as well at future meetings. We can put that on a future agenda, perhaps next meeting or in the near future. All right, is there anything else, Nadine?
So Chair Bingley, if it's okay with the committee, I can make these updates and I'll I like if the committee decides when they'd like to meet again, they can review it, perhaps do those individual tours of areas that you want to bring forward recommendations to council, and then we could maybe establish a meeting that this would be brought forward to, you know, maybe the end of June or early July to council, if that's
Sure.
so that it's brought forward in a timely manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so I think, is there any further feedback from anyone? Corey,
This is a little bit off topic, but does anybody know of a place in town that rents mobility ramps or anything? The closest one I found was like Perth Mobility, but that's not in town. I'm just wondering if there's anything locally.
not sure, but I know that I had that document previously from Marshall Hogan, so that we could perhaps talk about that again if the committee would like to do that. In terms of something in town, I'm not sure. There's I know there's places that you can rent smaller mobility aids, canes, walkers, that end of things, but the ramps I'm not exactly sure about, other than, like I say, that that website that we can explore further if you would like.
Just at a future meeting, maybe, yeah.
Okay. We can put that in on the radar for a future meeting as well. All right, so I think, is there any other questions or comments that I may have missed? Not seeing anything on the screen or in the chat, so I think we're okay. So we'll just, that wraps up our priority issues for today. So I think we can move into our discussion around when the next meeting shall be. So Nadine, just a bit of an idea, please, around time frame or how long you would suggest before another meeting.
I'm just wondering if we look at the middle of June, and then that way I can finalize the document, bring it back. It'll give everyone time to review like the areas or any recommendations they want to include in the final draft of the document. And then I can update that document, and we could maybe meet, like I said, middle of June. And then if it is supported or approved at this level, then we could, you know, bring it forward to council. I'm just thinking we have a committee of the whole on June 27th, or we have a committee of the whole on July 11th that are scheduled right now. So just, those are just some suggestions if everyone wanted to get their information to me by, like I said, I could have it prepared for maybe June 15th or June 22nd for the committee.
Okay. Does anyone have a preference in terms of, do those two dates sound like they would work for people?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll settle on which date people would prefer. And Nadine, just to confirm, what are those Wednesdays?
Those are Wednesdays.
Those are Wednesdays.
Just looking at the live stream calendar, they both look open. So
What was the first date again, Nadine? June
15th, that's the Wednesday.
June 15th works for me.
Me too.
So if we schedule it for June 15th, Madam Chair, I just would request any updates by June 10th to me, and I'll put that in an email to committee members, and then I can finalize everything to have it out with the agenda package.
Sure. So I think we can go with June 15th then. Now, Nadine, is there a time that would work on the live stream end, or?
You know, the housing task force usually meets in the afternoon, so if 9 a.m. works for everybody again, then it's if that works.
Sure. Sure. Dan?
Yeah.
Believe you had your hand up, or?
Yeah. 9 a.m. works.
9? All right. So it's looking as if June 15th at 9 a.m. seems to work for everyone. That seem okay, Councillor McGuire? Is that seeming at this point good for you?
Yep.
Obviously, we would just make sure that Councillor Allen is aware of that as well. I know she had to
I'll
step
let her
out.
know. I'll let her
Okay,
know.
thank you very much. Okay, so June 15th at 9 a.m. then. So I think we can wrap up today. we'll wrap up. So if I could have a motion to adjourn today's proceedings, please. Katie, thank you. And I'll have a seconder, please. Corey, thank you. And I'll just a quick reminder, I'll see everyone at Independent tomorrow at 6 p.m. Please wear those red t-shirts and we'll get a wonderful picture of our wonderful group. So
Okay.
we'll see you tomorrow evening. So
Thank you.